This is an overview of the plot toolbar in IRSA Viewer and other IRSA tools that have this same look and feel. I'm going to tackle these topics not necessarily in the order in which they appear, but in the order of complexity, because I think it will be easier to understand some of these tools. When you load a table into IRSA Viewer, if it has RA and DEC, then it plots the catalog on a coverage image and it makes a plot. The default plot is RA and DEC. If it can't find RA and DEC, then it doesn't plot it on the image and it makes a plot of the first two numerical columns that it finds. There are other videos that go through images in the image toolbar and tables in the tables toolbar, but I'm going to focus this video on the plots and the plot toolbar. The first thing to notice is because there are 25,000 rows in this catalog, the default plot that it makes is a grayscale plot in that each one of the points here can represent more than one row from the catalog. As I move my mouse around, you can see underneath my mouse how many rows each one of these cells represents. Over here in the upper right, there's an arrow. If you click on it, it expands the plot to take over the entire browser area. To go back to the default view, you can hit close, and then you're returned to this view. Another icon in the upper right is the gear. The gear is probably the most important icon that you have in the toolbar because this controls what is being plotted. You have to type in columns from the catalog in exactly the way they appear in the catalog. If your catalog has columns in all caps, then you have to refer to them here in all caps. The columns in our catalog here are all lowercase, so we can use lowercase. If you don't remember what the columns are in the catalog, if you click on the magnifying glass, you get a pop-up Firefly table that has a list of all of the columns from the catalog and, if available, a description of the columns. If you are interacting with a table that is new to you, those descriptions are really helpful. But for me, this is a WISE table and I'm really familiar with this catalog. So just to start with, let's, instead of RA, do W1M Pro for the WISE profile fitted magnitude, and then for the y-axis, let's do W1 Sig M Pro. That's the error in the WISE 1 profile fitted magnitude. By default, it's a grayscale. Let's pick something different, maybe the purple sequence. You can control the number of bins in the X and Y direction, and then you can control also chart options like the title and the X labels and the direction of the axes. Let's put this W1, and then for the Y-axis, error in W1. Apply, close. Now we have a grayscale plot, error in WISE 1 and WISE 1. Now, the savvy among you may have noticed that the plot zoomed a little bit. I do this by accident all the time because I have a magic mouse. It's useful when you need to do this intentionally, but it's kind of annoying when it happens accidentally. I use this 1X button all the time. This goes back to the original range of the plot. You can see on the side here that this range goes up past 600 objects in some of these cells. You can also do plots of manipulated columns. In the other videos and in the documentation, you can see that you can create additional columns. You can also do some manipulation of columns in the call here, but for purposes of this example, I'm going to actually go and select the new column that I created, which is WISE 1 minus WISE 4, and for the y-axis, W1M Pro, because that's WISE 1. I'm creating a color magnitude diagram, so I want to reverse the y-axis. I'll put in some labels just to be fancy, and then apply, close. Now I have a grayscale plot that is a color magnitude diagram. If you have a small enough catalog or you filter down your catalog so that you have few enough sources, then the sources are shown individually. Here too, you can actually do the manipulation. So W1M Pro minus W4M Pro, W1M Pro, and then again, we can reverse the y-axis and make a color magnitude diagram. Here's a color magnitude diagram. Plot and the image and the table are all interactive. So if I click in the plot, then it's highlighted in the table and in the image. You might notice in this particular case, I've filtered down the catalog to make sure that I have few enough sources that they're shown individually on the plot. This icon here pulls up another interface to those filters. It's just the same kind of thing as you can get from the top of the table itself. It's just another way of imposing the filters. this icon returns everything to the defaults. I'm not going to click on that because I've already got some important things imposed. This saves the chart. It just saves that view of the chart as a PNG file, and it saves it wherever your browser is configured to save files. This we've already covered. This takes any zoomed view of the plot and returns it to the original view. This cancels any filters you have imposed. Again, I'm not going to click this right now because I do have filters imposed. This trio of icons is somewhat tricky to explain. The best analogy I can come up with, if you have a TV remote at home, you might remember that your TV remote sometimes has to have different modes. Like in this mode, it talks to the cable box. In this mode, it talks to the TV. In this mode, it talks to the DVD player. You know what I mean? You have different modes in the same remote to talk to different devices that you have at home. This is the same kind of thing. So when this is depressed, it's in select mode, and you can click and drag in the plot. When you do that, you can, for example, impose an additional filter. Like when I did that just now, I could, if I wanted, click on filter. This would add an additional filter so that then I would only select the brightest and reddest points in this color magnitude diagram. It would drastically reduce my catalog from 1,800 sources down to a much smaller subset. And this could be useful because maybe I do want to only select the brightest and reddest sources for further inspection. But that's not the only thing I can do. If I change modes and go to this, when I'm in this mode, when I click and drag, it pans the plot. So that's a different kind of thing for your mouse to do. Let's go back to the original view. Now this mode, when you click and drag, the plot will then zoom. So if I click and drag, it will zoom on that section of the diagram. Let's go back and repeat that if I just want to zoom in here on things that are like stellar photospheres. That's what it will do. So by default, it comes up in select mode because that's probably the most common use that you're going to have for this interface. Pinning plots, that's another big concept within IRSA Viewer and similar tools. If I pin this chart, what that means is I have an additional tab here that saves this plot. I don't mean saves to disk. It means hold on to it in this tab. So I could, if I wanted now, make another plot. So instead of y is 1 minus y is 4, let's make y is 1 minus y is 2. And then y is 3 minus w4 mpro, y is 4. So now I have a color diagram. So now I have a second plot that's totally different than the first plot. Now I can pin that one. So now I have two pinned charts, and I can continue to make additional plots and pin them. Now I have these plots that are sort of saved. I can go back to them at any time. When I'm viewing them multiple charts at once, then yes, the axes go away, because it turned out when we were developing and testing this tool, it turned out the axes actually took up a huge amount of screen real estate. If you want the axes back, you need to view them one at a time, and then you can scroll through the collection of pinned charts that you have. If you have multiple catalogs loaded, you can pin charts from more than one catalog at a time. It's just a way of being able to save more than one chart at a time. If you want to make additional charts, you can also add a chart. You can add a histogram. So if you want a histogram of all of the WISE1 values, you can control the number of bins, the min and the max, and all the usual plots and labels. So now I have a histogram of the WISE1 values, and similarly, see how that's outlined in orange? That's the selected plot. I can pin that chart. Now I have 3 pinned charts, the 2 scatter plots and the histogram. Back to the active charts, I added an active chart, so I have 2 active charts. These charts, even the pinned charts, will continue to update. So if I impose additional filters on this corresponding catalog, these charts will update. When you have multiple catalogs loaded in, this icon will help you figure out which of the pinned charts that catalog corresponds to. So if you have several catalogs loaded, this icon will be clickable, And when you click on that icon, it will bring the corresponding catalog to the foreground in the collection of tabs down here. This one allows you to combine charts. If you have more than one chart from the same catalog and you want to combine them into the same chart, that's what this icon does. It makes more sense when you have plots of spectra that you need to combine, like more than one order from the same file, and you want to combine all of the spectroscopic orders on the same plot. That's the reason why this feature was introduced. So that covers all of the icons that you see at the top of the plot window. Don't forget that there's online help, including help specifically on the plots and the plots toolbar with lots more information.